We are here at the Capitol with Occupy Austin, and this is Barbie.
Hi.
Hi, Barbie. When did you become a member of the Occupy movement?
I guess officially January 1st of this year. So a little bit late in the game.
You were telling me you want to talk a little bit about what brought you out. You were telling me earlier.
Sure, I was not an Occupy supporter prior January 1st. What motivated me to get involved with the Occupy movement was specifically the NDAA and the signing of that. I felt as if the NDAA was a direct result of the Occupy movement.
And you obviously understood the consequences of what that could be for people who weren't occupied even.
Sure. Well, I mean, in my mind, when they signed the NDAA, it doesn't really have anything to do with terrorism. Terrorism within the United States is really not a serious problem. You probably have a greater risk of being hit by a car than you do being run down by some sort of terrorist. And frankly, what they're doing is they're saying, essentially, they're allowed to pick anyone out if they suspect them of terrorism, but they don't have to prove it. And I feel that the Occupy movement, because it's growing in strength, is their biggest threat.
Yes, ma'am. How would you describe the situation in the United States?
Dangerous. Dangerous. I feel like we slipped into that slope that now the government is being very brazen that they have more power than they should, and they're unapologetic about it. And the problems with that is that at any time they can start taking away your right to be free, and they don't have to answer for themselves. So I feel like if we don't get involved, there's going to be a point where we're not going to be capable of getting involved.
It's going to pass the point.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
How would you describe the Occupy movement?
Amorous. You know, I don't think that they have one message. I don't think that it's about any one cause. It's more of general unrest. Which is part of the reason why initially I didn't support it. I felt like my goals were very specific, and the Occupy was, you know, a little bit misdirected as far as who was at fault and what needed to be done. But I feel like ultimately what's most important is people are getting educated, people are starting to understand what's going on, and they're starting to get active about it. So that's really what's most important ultimately is, you know, for whatever your cause is, get active.
Yeah, do something.
And really get the information.
Good deal. Are you a member of the economic 99%? $250,000 or less a year?
I do not make $250,000 in a year. No, I don't.
Do you just want to share anything about, day-to-day life in America, being a member of the 99, the economic 99?
Well, I have several jobs, and I do this because I have a child and I need to be able to support her. I am a former middle-class citizen. I used to, drive a new car every year or every other year. And
when there was a middle class? Yeah.
When there was a middle class, I was definitely a part of that. I had, savings account and all of those things, and now it's gotten to the point where I'm working harder and I'm working longer, and my money is going less and less as far. So it's become really problematic for me that despite all of my efforts and all of my previous training and all of the things that I've done, I can't even stay above water. So, I mean, it's difficult. It's not the primary reason why I'm out here, but it is certainly a contributing factor.
People are starting to feel it here.
Yeah.
How long do you plan on being a supporter or member of the Occupy movement?
Until the government starts scaling back in its laws and its legislations and starts making some real changes in order that really affect us. I feel like we get spoken to a lot. And it's, I'm not really into the whole just telling me what I want to hear. I want to see some actual things being done. I want to see some policy changes. And I feel like as long as we're active and as long as we're vocal and as long as we're educating, we can stay on top of the legislation. As it is right now, they do a lot of stuff that people don't even know about. And I think it's important to, now that I'm quote unquote awake, to stay active for the long haul. I don't think that the problems that we have right now are going to be resolved in a year or maybe even 10 years.
Yeah. Good answer. Do you have a favorite story or experience you'd like to share about Occupy, whether it was something that happened to you or that you saw, or even something you saw on TV, anything that's a special moment in your mind?
It's funny. When like I said before, I was not an Occupy supporter, and I was sitting at home, and I got the information about the NDAA as of January 1st, and I felt like it just kicked me in the face because I do understand the implications. very interested in politics. I do know what happens to countries.
Studied
when
history,
lose
you were
that.
telling me.
Absolutely. I studied history and political science in college, and so this was a major red flag for me. And I felt like there was nowhere that I could go because the mainstream media was not talking about it. There wasn't any information on the news, and yet this was now a law. And so I felt like, well, maybe I can turn to the Occupy movement, right? Because there's already, this large group of people that are being mobilized. So I drove out to the Occupy movement, and it was actually coincided with the day after their 3-month anniversary, where everybody had this huge party. So there was nobody there. There was like 20 homeless guys. That was it.
On the steps. Yeah.
On the steps. That was it. And
this is the movement I was looking for.
And my greatest fear had been realized that, because the mainstream media is like, it's nothing but a couple of homeless people, and that's what I saw. And when I came up, there was a group of policemen there, and I was like, is this it? Is this the Occupy movement? And they were like, and they laughed at me, and they said, yeah, this is it. Join in. And I cried all the way home, and I was just like, I have nowhere to turn. What can I do? And then ironically, I reached out to one other member that had themselves listed as Occupy movement organizer, and she said, absolutely not. This is not the case. There is a good movement going on. Please come back out. They invited me out to one of their meetings, and I just met a really great group of people, and I realized they are smart. They do know what they're doing. They're
some good
helping
ones
the
here in
homeless,
Austin.
but it's not specifically homeless people, and it is people that are trying to make a change. And so I think for me, it was just like a huge eye-opener that what we're being fed, that this movement is all about, is not what it's really all about. And you're not going to know unless you see. You're not going to know unless you reach out. So that was my personal Occupy movement, was the introduction of it.
No, that's a really cool story. It is too. And I'm glad that you were able to find somebody. If you'd been there the day before, that was the first time I came to hang out with Occupy Austin. It was a great night the night before.
I missed it. I came the next day, and everybody was home. So, but yeah, like I said, you really don't know until you go and see. You really don't. You really don't understand the whole different range, the diversity of people that are here. Personally, I'm a Ron Paul supporter. There are a lot of people who are not, but the message is the same. We've got to change the way that we're doing.
No, and there's some things Ron Paul that he's for and against that all of us are also for and against. We might not agree with everything of his, but there's everybody's for in the Fed and Occupy everybody. Kind of some of the stuff you'd already just said in the last question, but do you have anything else you might like to share with people who may be misinformed or may not even have heard of the Occupy movement?
Turn off the television. Turn off the television. Get on the internet. Get independent news. Don't rely on what you're being told. It is not true. It is absolutely not true. The media companies are being supported. It is propaganda. And if you just take 2 days, just 2 days out of your life, sit down, don't watch the Kardashians, who cares about Justin Bieber, look up all of these other organizations, look into Occupy, look at, just anything other than Fox, NBC, CBS, NBC. Get your news elsewhere, because you're not being told the truth. So I think that's true for the Occupy movement, it's true for what the politicians are doing, it's true about our foreign policy, it's true about the economic standing. Get your news elsewhere. That's what I would say.
Very good. And our last question, is there a new message you would like to share with your fellow Occupy movement brothers, sisters, and supporters across Texas and the world?
Smile at them when they boo at you.
Thank you very much, Barbie.